Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Hello and welcome to yet another After Movie Diner episode, and we're here in the TikTok Diner on 34th Street, and I'm here with Demetrius Angelo. Is it Angelo? Angelo.
Angelo. Michael Angelo.
Nice, excellent. And here's the brains behind the Urban Action Showcase. Mm-hmm. Listeners will remember that last year we brought them coverage both on our YouTube channel and on the podcast of the Urban Action Showcase. And it's coming up again in November, and we're talking with Demetrius tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, sir.
Well, I appreciate you thinking of me and inviting me.
Oh, it's fantastic, and we hope everyone, when they hear the interview and they look into the website and they want to come along to the show. That's the plan here. But also for me to just get to know you better and find out where you came from and why it is that this event is so important to you. That's the big thing.
Well, believe it or not, I was born in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
My father was a detective at that time for the Metropolitan Police Department.
Yeah.
So at 4 years old, he had me playing Little League football. So I guess he was prepping me for contact sport. But I happened to be around, when I was around 7, looking at TV and I saw Bruce Lee. So, start jumping on the bed. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I said, I told my dad, I want to do that.
Yeah, of course.
So fortunately, we have a boys and girls club. So they had Tang Soo Do at the boys club.
Right.
And we didn't know the difference in styles. We just knew kicking and punching.
Yeah.
So that my first introduction to the martial arts was the Tang Soo Do style in DC, but it wasn't like I saw on TV. So I went back to football.
Right.
And then when I was 10, my parents got divorced, and my neighbor's father from downstairs would teach his son, or practice with his son outside.
Yeah.
And they had black geese. This is 1979.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is different, because, we had the white geese. Like, okay, well, I think I want to do that, And, as a single mother, she felt, it's probably best that her son does something to keep him focused and disciplined and out of the streets.
Right.
So that's when I got introduced to my core styles of martial arts, which is called the Asian American Combat System.
Okay.
Which was the Okinawa Shunryu Kobayashi style.
Right.
Largo de Mano, Arnas de Mano, Filipino stick fighting.
Okay.
Western boxing, Chinese boxing, jiu-jitsu, American freestyle, and kabuto, which is Okinawa Japanese weapons.
Okay.
So I stuck with that until I left for college at 17. But then don't forget, there was the ninja craze.
Yeah, in the 80s.
So all of a sudden, after 1985, I had to become a ninja.
Of course.
Which means
Shokasugi, of course, was the big ninja. He was the guy. But
Enter the Ninja.
Right.
Revenge of the Ninja and all those. But then I already had the black gi.
Right.
So to make the transformation to it wasn't hard.
You just needed the mask, right?
That's all I needed. I got to be some ninja stars.
Nice.
And started throwing them. Because I already did the weapons. Kabuto was already the art of the Okinawa Japanese weapons. So, I went through that phase. But I stuck with it, and when I came here to New York at 17 to go to college, The Last Dragon was my favorite film. So I met people who were connected with it. Grandmaster Ron Van Cleef,
right?
Grandmaster Tony Mayo, Grandmaster Chief Black Horse San Carlos. All those guys, they were teach at this church called Manhattan Bible Church, and I was doing missionary work because I went to a Christian liberal arts college.
Okay.
So I would come down to Lower Manhattan because I was living in Westchester. And, you know, working with the kids, but they had a martial arts program with these guys, you know, running it.
Nice.
So that was great that I get to, you know, train with those guys. A lot of the Guardian Angels for back in the day. So, you know, I just stuck with the arts, and then I met some great people when I got into the fitness realm in '91. Professor V, very well-known professor. Visitation is his name. Grandmaster David Jones, Grandmaster Professor Brew, and you know, that whole circle of the New York martial arts circuit.
Right.
You know.
So the first time you came up to the city was for college. You had
yes,
yeah,
yes, for college. But you know, when martial arts is part of your life, you're always looking for that connection.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
You know, and I actually got to train with the one who called Beast in the movie.
Right.
His name is Shion Iceman Andre Brown. And believe it or not, he was the producer of the Uptown Comedy Club on Fox.
Nice.
But obviously he was Beast in The Last Dragon.
Right.
So he invited me to train because we were talking. I forgot. I think I went to the Uptown Comedy Club, and he let me come down. And they had a style called Wolf Fox, very, very intense style. Well, I don't know if he's Grandmaster now, but Dwayne Thomas, his name, we called him Sudan. And then Malcolm Livingston, and they created this style, you know, I guess through the different karate styles and martial arts that they learned called Wolf Fox. So, you know, that was another connection to, you know, the film that I loved.
Right. So that was really, The Last Dragon then was really the movie. You were into martial arts before you were into the movies, and that was the movie that kind of
the movie that
solidified both things, right?
No, that was the movie that made me feel that I can be in the movies.
Oh, okay. Right.
Because remember, the whole ninja phase, the Canon Films.
Right.
So I had gotten some pictures made, and I sent them off to Canon Films and so forth. Nice. But, you know, I was young, and no one looked like me.
Right.
But then in 1985, you know, Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon time, I'm like, hey, I got there's some similarity. I can do that now.
Right.
You know.
So you weren't aware then were you watching a lot, or were you aware a lot of those movies that had come before, like the early 70s ones? With...
Oh, of course. I've always saw, you know, Shaft, Fred Williamson, Fred the Hammer. I used to watch Black Caesar and Three the Hard Way, One Down, Two to Go.
So was it more like Tamac's age and the
It was more the age,
because
remember, you know, I was born in the 60s, but
right.
These people were older than me.
Right.
So, you know, they were something to aspire to, but I didn't see one that looked my age.
Right.
You know, like, you know, doing something. And I was like, you know.
And specifically about the martial arts as well, I suppose. Like before that, you've got Jim Kelly, but I mean...
well, you know, Enter the Dragon, Jim Kelly. But, you know, I still had all those movies from Jim Kelly, you know, Black Samurai, Hot Potato, you know, Black Belt Jones.
That's a great movie,
what they call Black Belt Jones too, which I think is really Black Samurai, with the strong one, Bolo Young.
Oh yeah, Bolo Young, he's phenomenal.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, but like I said, those were people that I aspired to be like because they were older.
Right.
You know, but like I said, The Last Dragon, it was like, okay, I feel it was a stronger connection because the age was a much closer, and I can actually see myself. You know, by seeing him, like, oh, then I definitely have a chance now. You know?
Right. No, completely.
That's what made me feel that way. But, you know, you get up here, it's a grind. New York City is a grind.
Oh, you have to hustle,
sure.
right? All the time.
It's a hustle. And when it comes to action stars, I found out that, you know, they weren't really interested in my look. At that time, the only person of color we had on the screen after Timac was Carl Weathers.
Right.
You had Action Jackson.
Right.
And then he had some other film that came out, you know, then too. But before then, you saw him in the Rocky film.
Right, completely. We haven't looked at food yet. Sorry, we already started talking. But some water would be great. And we'll go from there. That'd be great. Thanks. Yeah, let's pick what we want to eat, dude, and then we'll keep talking. It's all good. This is fascinating stuff, though, man. Because I'm like a big fan of like New York of that period as well. Mm-hmm. Like all the movies from the 80s and stuff that kind of show a more authentic New York, or seemingly a more authentic New York.
It was way different.
So to hear stories from that time, someone who like lived through that, that's also fascinating. I love all that.
You didn't hear anything. we used to train. They used to do the Uptown Comedy Club was a show, a comedy show you would come see before it became a TV show.
Right.
And it was at the original National Black Theater in Harlem. And we actually used to train in the theater where they would have the show at nights. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, it was definitely hardcore for sure.
Yeah. And did you find there was much difference in the experience between DC and New York at that time, or was it?
In DC, I lived in the suburbs. But I would go to DC every weekend because I worked at my father's deli, a liquor store that my grandmother ran. So I would go to DC on the weekends, but I didn't do martial arts in DC.
Okay.
You know, but you know, I still went to a school that was a full contact school.
Yeah.
So it was very, you know, full contact was full contact to me. I was used to it, you know. In fact, I didn't even know anything about point until I came up here. Point was new to me.
Right. And what's that exactly?
Point
Just to
sparring,
explain
like
to the listeners.
you hit and you stop. Oh, that's a point. They break you and you see if it's a point.
Right.
Yeah, well, I was just into continuous sparring. I didn't know anything about that. You know, so I got introduced to that, but I was more of a just straight fight and go. So, you know, it was a good experience.
You probably have to watch your diet way more than I do, right?
I only eat certain things,
Okay.
but that's just me. That's always just been me.
Oh, okay. So that's
You know,
not to do with the martial arts.
Well, it was just part of health, living a healthy lifestyle.
Right. I can't claim such things, but
It was just, I've never drank a day in my life.
Right.
Never smoked. You know, I learned about nutrition in school, so I got 15, I think I stopped eating red meat. And I only eat mostly fish or chicken, vegetables, rice. But now I'm even cutting back on that because I've been doing some more studying on, not having starches in the body and trying not to have blood. You know, trying to get the body to be in a state where it heals itself.
Right.
Continuously.
Yeah.
And I take a lot, I definitely take my supplements because food-wise, the way they're changing the food, genetically modifying these, quote, organisms.
Right.
It's not their seed the original seed with the original nutrients and stuff.
Yeah, no, of course.
So it's been manipulated.
Yeah.
Where it's actually hurting you more than it's helping you. That's why you have the choice of organic versus not. You know, so I'm just trying to do better because there's enough out there trying to kill you.
Oh yeah, no,
I might as well not kill myself.
The farming is, all over, but especially here is ridiculous in terms of like the poisons they put in everything. But I'm a simple fellow. I couldn't restrict myself. Things taste too good, I'm just, and also I really love and respect the martial arts in the movies and practitioners of it, but I've never been able to kind of see myself doing it.
It's true.
You're fighting in New York, you're teaching people in New York, and The Last Dragon has had a bigger impact on you at this point.
Yeah, that was one of my decisions to come to New York because I was going to go to California or New York because I knew I wanted to try to do some action films. Right. But I found out...
So your big thing was always to be in the movies?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So I said, okay, I got accepted here in New York. So I was like, okay, well, I already got accepted in New York, so, let's go to New York. So that's where I went.
Nice.
And I've been here the rest of my life. I've lived in New York longer than I've lived in D.C.
Than anywhere else. And you love the city? You still love the city?
I do because it's my pace,
Right.
I've always moved at a fast pace.
Yeah.
And it's very accessible, with the train system, I used to have a car when I was in Westchester, and then that 94 snow was huge. One of the cabs, I was parked, one of the cabs hit my car, knocked it on the sidewalk, and totaled it.
Right.
So I became a train dweller ever since. But you know what? It works. You really don't need a car in the city.
No, I don't even know how to drive, so This is the perfect city for me. It's the perfect city for me anyway. Like everyone who knows me from the UK, I've lived in the States since December 07, so I'm coming up on whatever that is, 8 years now or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was in Vegas for the first 18 months. So my ex had family out there. Mm-hmm. And then I've been in New York since March of 09. It doesn't seem to matter what happens to me here. I can stand up and brush it off and move on, you know what I mean? And it's got that it's got that thing. Like nobody cares about your personal story to some extent, so it doesn't really. No one's like scrutinizing it.
Right.
You can make it what you want it to be.
Exactly.
And you can make the city what you want the city to be.
Okay, so I'll take the salmon with the rice and the broccoli, like you said. And the tomato basil thing, I don't.
I'm not going to do that. Like just rice and broccoli
with the salmon. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want a soup or salad?
What kind of soup is it?
Chicken soup.
I'll take the salad. The dressing on the side. What kind of dressing?
Balsamic Italian with cheese.
Italian on the side.
Can I get the Manhattan single pancake?
Like ham, bacon, or sausage?
Can I get sausage with that, please? Can I have the eggs scrambled?
Okay.
Thanks. There's so much going on here that you can really tailor the city to be what you want to be. And you can reinvent yourself as many times as you need to be. Because like I say, no one's really scrutinizing you because there's 8 other million people walking.
Right,
So,
exactly.
like, that's what I kind of love about it. You can kind of make it what you will. Mm-hmm. And I know that I wouldn't be the... as relatively outgoing as I am, or as involved as I am with the things that I'm involved in if I hadn't have lived here. And if I hadn't have come to the States, full stop, but if I then didn't live in New York, because it just kind of teaches you to engage with it in some way. Did you find that?
I think I was kind of that kind of person already, you know? Once I'm in my element, I'm very comfortable.
Yeah.
You know? I want to make sure things are in order,
right.
So I kind of tend to take the lead in things. So, and I've always, whatever I've done, I made sure I've given it the maximum effort. That being said, the whole acting thing started with the modeling, and believe it or not, I was a romance model.
Right.
I've got like 9 book covers.
Oh, nice.
You know? Whatever it took to get out there.
Of course.
But I found that, like I said, once I started to look and see, they weren't Hollywood, I'm talking Hollywood, was not creating action content with too many people of color.
Right.
The 70s was our heyday. When it comes to people of color, the 70s was the heyday, be it black or Asian. That was your heyday. Like I said, in the 80s, you had Tarmac in 1985. The last blaxploitation film, or film of the blaxploitation era, was One Down, Two to Go.
Yeah.
1984, Fred Williamson, Jim Kelly, Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree. 1985, you had The Last Dragon. Action Jackson came out, I believe, in 86. Same lead, female, Vanity.
Yeah.
Then he had one more film after that. He was gone. The 90s, you got Wesley Snipes.
Right.
And he stood the full decade alone. The end of the decade, towards 2000s, you began to get Rock, Vin Diesel, but they were more the ambiguous types. I know that they're black, but a lot of people don't know that they're black. So when it comes to, and you didn't have any more Asians. None. No more. I'm talking about Americans. I'm not talking about Jackie Chan coming over here.
Right, or Jet Li.
I'm not talking about Jet Li coming up. Those are not American films.
No.
Those are Chinese films or Hong Kong films that they bring over here, they license and bring over here. That doesn't count, as far as, don't forget.
Yeah,
Bruce
which
Lee.
Asian Americans do you have working? I'm trying to rattle
now?
through my... No, back then. I'm trying
then?
Rattle through my brain. I can't really think. Because, obviously, like we've said, Jackie Chan and Jet Li come over and they're in, like, Lethal Weapon, or they do the Shanghai Nights or whatever that movie was. But there isn't that. There aren't homegrown American Asians working.
You had Jackie Chan came over with his Rumble in the Bronx and talking about doing his own action scenes and this, that, and other. That's why.
The Protector he tries, doesn't he? That's one of the ones he does in New York with Jim Glickenhaus as director. It's the one with Danny Aiello where they end up going to Asia, but it starts off in New York. There's that boat chase that goes down the East River.
Okay. I'm sure I've seen it.
Yeah.
But once again,
Oh yeah, he's an implant from Asia, not the other way around.
Was that an American movie?
Oh, it was an American movie, yeah.
Okay,
wait a minute, did Golden Harvest produce that? I think Golden Harvest produced that, or I think an Asian company produced that to break Jackie in America. But although it's an American director, it starts with an American, it's predominantly an American cast, I think it's financed much like China O'Brien was when Cynthia Rothrock first comes back to America. It's an American movie. In other words, it's shot in America, but it's financed by Golden Harvest. And I think The Protector was the same.
Because I remember you had, as far as Jackie Chan doing American movies, you had the Rush Hour series, and then you had the Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon, with Owen
Rush Hour is the other
Wilson,
one. Right.
Yeah. So that was his thing, but
But yeah, it's Wesley Snipes, isn't it? He's the one standing tall. And he had the similar trajectory that someone like a Van Damme or a Seagal had, meaning that like their first few came out theatrically, and then shortly after they all go straight to video, right? They don't.
What happened was,
I mean, he has The Blade, but
after The Blade, then they kind of blacklisted him. After Blade 3.
Because he does a whole ton that come out straight to video through the end of the 90s, early millennium.
Yeah. After that, that's exactly what happened. But you know what? That also speaks to the change in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Because things went digital.
Yeah.
We had the internet, and, there was a major shift with the digital filmmaking and the VOD and so forth. So that actually opened other avenues. So, and it made things easier for me, because once I saw that, okay, well, they're not going to do it for me, let me go the independent route, and then I'm like, oh, well, then I can do this myself.
Yeah.
And that's when I started filmmaking in like 94 or something. Maybe no.
Well, there's also a big indie resurgence then. You'd had Hollywood movies all through the 80s, and then you have your filmmakers like Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and Richard Linklater. Spike Lee is making movies that are more independent initially.
Right. No, exactly.
But there's an explosion of independent movie making at the beginning of the 90s that is not what was going on in the 80s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm thankful for the shift, but I also saw that, like I said, Hollywood wasn't going to put me in this position.
Right.
So I figured out, okay, how can I put myself in the position? And that's when I got into the filmmaking and writing and, creating my own content, because I could.
Right.
That simple, because I could. And you start and you grow.
Right.
You learn from experience. And that's basically how I got to where I am now. But, now being in my late 40s, almost 50, I've learned that, okay, I can't change it one film at a time, because my films aren't big enough.
Right.
But I can change it collectively by bringing awareness and celebrating the achievements.
Yes.
And that's where I got the mentality for a film festival. But what I learned was I didn't want it to be like the ones that I had experienced, where it's more about, it was about the festival and not the people. Because I would go and I would ask questions and I didn't get the answers.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, I want to make an event where people can actually get real information and that they can actually see a difference right then and there. So I began to think and brainstorm, and fortunately I was already a consultant at HBO since '99, believe it or not, in fitness. So I had a lot of connections. So, in 2012, I approached him and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? Specifically the Cinemax brand, because the Cinemax brand was the action brand.
Right.
When they became a content developing channel, they went straight to action. In fact, not until last year did they have any content that wasn't action.
Right.
The Nick was the only thing that they got new that wasn't action.
Right.
But Hunted was action, Strike Back is action, Banshee is action. So their whole premise was the action genre. So I brought it to them. They said, okay, let me see what you're going to do. And they gave me an opportunity. And fortunately, we debuted in 2013. And what I did that was different was, yes, there was a film festival with it. Within this film festival, recognizing that the action genre is the most expensive genre, I made sure that there was a no-budget award category for both shorts, features, pilots, web series, as well as action scenes.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talent that doesn't have the money for the effects and or the reds or whatever.
Right.
But they can still make good films.
Yeah.
Not only that, I said, okay, well, my protocols are going to be information, education, facilitation, and exposure. Why? Because you need to be informed, you need to be educated, someone needs to facilitate this stuff, and then you need a platform to be exposed.
Right.
That being said, I began building relationships with distribution companies. And the first was distributor owned by Peter Gerard and another gentleman out of Ireland.
Okay.
They were the first to come on board, a lovely distribution platform that had an affiliate program, which made you like an HBO.
Right.
Or actually made you like a Time Warner or something like that, whereas you had content that you could send out to different affiliates, and they can get paid for your content by the platform, and you still make your money.
Okay.
So it was an amazing platform, and then Peter sold it in 2014 and went to Vimeo, and then he brought Vimeo on board with us. So that was the main issue. Distribution has always been.
Oh yeah, for any filmmaker, distribution is the hardest thing.
And because of the digital revolution and the VOD and so forth, it's perfect. Whereas now you have every key is up to you now. So distribution was taken care of, and then I would have film finance with social media, film finance with crowdfunding or source funding.
Right.
Because that's the most popular grassroots way to raise money.
Right.
Where you build a fan following through your social network and so forth, and
because it's the aspect I feel like your show has versus other conventions or other shows that I've been to, is that idea that you can come to your show if you're an indie filmmaker, if you're an indie comic book artist, if you're an indie writer, whatever it is, an indie martial artist, someone who's desperate to break into it and wants to figure out the pieces they need or the people they need to meet, and you can actually meet those people there and make those deals there if you're so inclined and if you've got the goods,
That, and the other difference I made was the actual stars, the people that they looked up to, actually taught. They gave back.
Yeah.
They taught some sort of class.
Oh, it was great to see Cynthia Rothrock teaching last year. I mean,
There
what
you
experience do you get that? I mean, to stand that close and watch her do that work, that was unbelievable. Owen and I kept pinching ourselves because we were stood there like, I can't believe we're watching the Lady Dragon do this. It's crazy.
That was
absolutely
amazing.
Crazy. Yeah.
Maurice Crump from Protector 2, he also taught screen fighting.
Yeah.
Bobby Samuels, who was Sammo Hung's protege.
Yeah.
The first African-American stuntman in Asia.
Yeah.
Not the first person to do Kung Fu, because obviously that's Ron Van Cleef, the Black Dragon.
Right.
But the first to be on the Hong Kong Stunt Association, Bobby Samuels. So he would teach, and we had some of the Grandmasters teach that actually taught the different people. For instance, we had Grandmaster Lamar Thornton, which was Wesley Snipes' instructor. There was just so many people there. Obviously, Grandmaster Ron Van Cleef was there, and did you know that's Timok's instructor?
Oh yeah, no, I did. Yeah, because he was talking about it last time I was there.
That's Timok's instructor. So
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Oh, that looks great.
Yeah,
look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was one of the it's, for me, the two things I found fascinating about the show was not just getting to meet Don the Dragon Wilson, who I'd actually been conversing with online quite a bit, and Cynthia Rothrock, who I'd previously interviewed, and so on. But it was also meeting, there was a couple of comic book artists who were phenomenal, Power Something Studios, who were great.
Power Studios.
And then there was obviously Gloria Hendry. I mean, meeting Gloria Hendry.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm such a Live and Let Die fan. It's insane. And then obviously I'm a then because you grow up with Bonds every Christmas in the UK, that's all they play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Live and Let Die, 'cause I'm a big Roger Moore fan, so I would watch those. But also, obviously, then in later life, I've come to know those earlier movies from the 70s that she was in, and and I'd already got to meet Pam Grier at the Lincoln Center shows that she'd done. So to meet Gloria Hendro was incredible, and there's that aspect of it. But also to meet, there was some independent filmmakers that I met who were incredible. They had a great show reel and some great videos available. The cosplayers and and all that aspect. And then, like I say, being able to see people train and being able to see people taught and everything from, you had like 4-year-old kids up to 40-year-olds all doing martial arts on the second level of the hotel. It was great.
Competition. It was called the Call to Action Martial Arts Action Talent Competition.
Right.
Where we had 16 action icons and grandmaster judging 4 different rings of both adults and children.
Yeah.
In 4 different categories, and we had several film companies attached.
Yeah.
So the winner got a walk-on role in that action film.
Wow.
So last year,
that's fantastic.
Marco the Answer Johnson, which is, believe it or not, the son of Willie the Bam Johnson from WMAC Masters, he won, and then he got a role in Beast, which was one of the films of Bobby Samuel's film company, which is going to premiere at this year's Urban Action Showcase. They're going to premiere the trailer,
right.
But it has a lot of the Hong Kong action stars in it from Five Deadly Venoms and all that.
Oh wow, from the old Shaw Brothers stuff.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Because he's really connected, Bobby Samuel.
Yeah,
very connected. So,
that's
from the
exciting.
business to the show end, we made sure that we had something available for everyone, and I'd like to continue that, as we go forth. But it's always a struggle when you're trying to change the mainstream and the main mentality of the old ways. It's hard to find funding. It's hard. The first year I used to spend all my money. Second year, we launched the 30th anniversary celebration of The Last Dragon.
Right.
So we had the majority of the cast there, and that was big because that was a New York film.
Oh yeah, completely. And I've seen on Facebook that Timac's been around traveling everywhere with that. I mean, he's gone everywhere with that and met everyone. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we've
gone around the country, right?
Yeah, we made that. We once we launched it, we went on tour. He's still on tour for the whole year, and we're going to shut it down at my event this year, just like we launched it
last year.
But I decided to, there's so many martial arts cult classics that are turning 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Let me do more than one. So Mortal Kombat turned 20 on August the 8th.
Nice.
So we're celebrating the 20th anniversary. We have Cary Tagawa coming. We have Keith Cook, which played Reptile in 1, and he also played Sub-Zero in 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, American Ninja is turning 30. So I'm still trying to get a hold to Michael Dudikoff, or at least the gentleman who played the Black Star Ninja.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking to have at least one of those guys. And then, of course...
Such a shame that Steve James is no longer with us. What a guy. He was in some great movies back then.
Exactly.
Another great New York actor, right?
Yes. So we're trying to...
Because he was in The Exterminator, I'm a big James Dickenhouse fan. In fact, I love a lot of filmmakers from New York in the 80s. And, of course, The Exterminator, that was another role where not the psychic, but the second lead was meant to be, or the guy who gets killed was meant to be Hispanic. But Steve James was the best actor for the role, and they changed the character from a Hispanic to African American.
Oh, okay.
Which is why Steve James got that role in the end. But he's great in all the films he's in. I mean, he's a phenomenal guy, and it's such a shame he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
It would have been great to have met him.
Exactly. So we're keep on pressing on. We have we're gonna have a nice stunt panel this year called Behind the Action, with fight choreographers and screen actors and stunt guys and girls, and we're still going to do all of the panels, and we're going to have the distribution workshop with Vimeo.
Nice.
This year, like I said, the funding has been very, very difficult. So If things pick up, we'll still be able to do the screen fighting, but right now it's not set. Depends on how the ticket sales go.
So yes, I was going to say. So in terms of our listeners, what is it that they can do, and how is it that you're fundraising, and what is it that you need from people who are excited and interested in this?
It's real simple. Buy a ticket. It's that simple.
It's all ticket prices.
You just support what you want to see.
Right.
Support what you got to invest in what you believe in.
I agree.
So as simple as buy a ticket. You don't have to. We do have a crowdfunding experience, but there's no need for that. If you buy a ticket, if enough people buy a ticket, the sponsors will come looking for me.
Right. Of course.
Right. I don't need to do anything. So, I don't make any money off of this.
Right.
I lose money off of this, believe it or not, because this is not an event, it's a movement.
Oh, I saw the size of it last year. I saw that you took over that 2 floors of a hotel, and then you have a screening room at the AMC. I mean,
Right. With
and
3
people,
of them.
people listening, when they're screening the movies, they're doing it at the AMC on 42nd Street. And if you've never been to New York before, that is a big, big deal. That is like the biggest cinema in New York.
That is the largest multiplex in New York City, and this is Times Square, the crossroads of the world.
Right.
To have your film screened there is like, I can't even, it's like...
It's amazing.
It's
And it's reaching back to those days when the smaller movies, the B movies, the indie movies could get screened on 42nd Street, right?
Right, exactly.
So it's got a little aspect to that. It's reaching back to the past, and you get that exciting feeling of being able to sit at the hub of activity in the whole of the city and know that your movie is on the big screen. I mean, that's reason enough to get excited, let alone the 2 floors of a building you take up and all the people who are showing up and the fights you get to see and the people you get to meet. I mean, that's all phenomenal, but that reaching back to that time, being able to see those movies on the big screen as a film fan, and all my listeners are film fans, that to me is the exciting, that's the really incredible part,
And this year, everything's at the AMC.
Right.
So we've taken over half the lobby they've given us.
Wow.
And like I said, we also have more space. If we get the support, there's an adjacent roof deck that they'll give us as well. We just have to put the tent on it, and we're ready to rock.
Nice. So man, that's incredible.
The potential to still do the screen fighting with the action stars, and we've done firearms with film, and weapons with film and so forth. It's still there. It's just a matter of getting the support from the fans.
Right.
And that's it. And the thing is, it's very reasonable. It's $30 for includes both the expo, all the films.
That's incredible. Yeah,
you don't go buy each film separate tickets. You go support your friends. You support independent filmmakers. You get to see these cult classics. We have the martial arts cult classic cinema panel with all the cult classic stars on it.
Are you having a lot of those grandmasters coming back this year who were there last year?
Absolutely. If they're in New York, they're coming back.
Nice. And it's been great because obviously since the show, actually, people like Cynthia Rothrock or Donna Dragon Wilson or Rory Hendry sort of putting a face to the name, where I'm concerned, like being able to follow them on Facebook and see there is such a martial arts community out there that maybe regular people aren't aware of, but there is such a community. I mean, Cynthia goes to all different countries on the planet, all around the world, to these different martial arts events. And we're looking for, we keep, one of the things that the martial arts fans are really trying to impress upon Hollywood, and I understand he doesn't necessarily fall into the remit, but Scott Adkins, I mean, we would love to see him do so much bigger work. Michael Jai White is another one. Would love to see him. He does great work. I mean, don't get me wrong, his movies are phenomenal, but it would be great to see him headlining some actual big major movies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got such talent. I mean, he's incredibly talented and incredibly versatile.
And
they don't
use him for his action prowess. They use him, believe it or not, for drama and comedy.
Right.
He was in a popular, what's his name? A popular drama called Why Didn't I Get Married? Tyler Perry movie.
Right.
Sequel, which he stars on television with as well. which is sort of like the TV spinoff,
Right.
which is called For Better or Worse, I believe. But the same actors,
Right.
Tasha Smith and Michael Jai White. So instead of using his major skill set in action, which to me he would just be a very dominating force.
Right.
He's reduced to doing comedy, or he's not reduced to it, but that's not how we like to see him. But at the same time, he creates his own content. He has the Black Dynamite series, and then he does all the overseas. He has Skin Trade.
Yeah.
With
Skin Trade's incredible. We reviewed it on the show. Yeah. Phenomenal with Tony Jaa and
everybody's in that film.
Yeah, Ron Perlman and Peter Weller and
So
Dolph Lundgren.
You got RoboCop, Hellboy.
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren, which from Rocky IV. Right. Everybody's in that film.
Yeah, Tony Jaa, the Protector.
Tony Jaa, yeah, exactly. So that's a star-studded cast.
And it's a good film. Lundgren gives an incredible performance, and in fact, the previous time that I'd seen him in a similar movie, again, I have to give it props because it's directed by one of my countrymen, Jesse V. Johnson, who's an incredible action director. He was the one who did that. I don't know if you saw that Wonder Woman fan film where she fights off all the Nazis. Did you see that one?
No, I gotta look it up.
It's
Wonder
incredible.
Woman fan film?
Yeah. Jesse V. Johnson, and he did it as a way to kind of go, look what I can do as an action director. He's the nephew of Vic Armstrong, who did all the stunts for the James Bond and Indiana Jones series.
Okay.
So he has been on action sets since he was a teenager.
Well, I'm glad you brought up fan films because we have a fan film competition.
Okay. Tell us about that, sir.
Any fan film. We have a YouTube fan film competition, and then we also have the Mortal Kombat one for this year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we try to make sure that there's different venues for people to show their talent.
Yeah. Oh, and have you heard of Natalie Byrne? She's doing some great producing and action and acting. She just did a movie called Awaken that has Robert Davi and I want to say Vinnie Jones and someone else in it. And she's producing them all herself, writing them herself, acting in them herself. She's done a lot of work with Benny the Jet. He was her trainer, I think.
Wow.
Because he appears in the movie as her father in a flashback sequence.
Okay. I gotta look that up.
And Natalie Byrne, we interviewed her for the Dr. Action show. She is phenomenal, very up-and-coming indie producer, actor, martial artist. But yeah, she's phenomenal as well. She's going to be not a martial arts role, but she's going to have a small role in Statham's The Mechanic 2 that's coming out at the beginning of next year.
Nice.
But I like, and then you see Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are doing their stuff, That's exciting. I mean, it's not everything.
Very exciting. But the thing is, it's exciting because we have these independent platforms where we can still see them. Because, Gina started in a huge film, Haywire.
Right.
Michael Douglas, Channing Tatum. Or is it Tatum Channing? One of them. I don't know.
I'm the same. I think he's got one of those names you can say any way you like and people still know who you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, straight to DVD with Blood Fight or Blood something.
That was really good.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. After that, she was in...
Fast and the Furious.
Fast 5.
6.
She's in
the
6?
one in the UK, yeah.
Yeah, she's in 6,
They fight in her and Michelle Rodriguez do the fight down the London Underground.
Exactly. Yeah. So she's in 6, but then after that, she's back to DVD.
In the Blood was the movie.
In the Blood, that's it.
So let me ask you, why do you think, because you mentioned obviously the Tyler Perry films, and obviously he's got very close connections with Oprah and things like that, and they're producing lots and lots of fairly big budget movies that are getting theatrical releases. Why do you think they've not gone the genre route? Because if you look at the 70s African American movies, they're predominantly genre films. They're gangster movies, or they're action movies, or they're detective movies, or there's westerns even, or they're kung fu movies, or whatever they are. They're kind of genre films. They're not race specific. Anyone could have played those characters to some extent, and the audiences weren't race specific. Everyone went and saw them. They were big hits on 42nd Street, no matter where you were from. And yet, why do you think now, when there's maybe more money and more of a platform for it, that people aren't doing those action movies, and why, for example, a movie like Alex Cross that Tyler Perry was in didn't have the same resonance as some of his either comedic or serious work does.
Well, I would first have to give Tyler Perry his due as a very wise business person.
Right.
Tyler Perry did something that no one's ever done before, and that was pre-syndicate his content.
Right.
So he was smart enough to buy his 100 episodes up front, therefore he was automatically syndicated.
Right.
But he has his niche of what he does, which is family Christian value comedy.
Right.
He started doing with plays, which were Christian-based plays.
Right.
So he stuck to his guns, and through his following was able to convince Turner, to give him this deal. And then, of course, he has the relationship that he has with Oprah and so forth. But action is not his genre.
Right.
And it was clear with Alex Cross that action is not his genre. And it was clear in Star Trek when we saw him. It was like the car went to an abrupt stop when we saw him as, I don't know if he was the president of the Federation, but I know my head went back when I saw him.
Right.
Because you're saying, what is Medea? I think he's typecast himself.
Right.
By always doing the same thing. But at the same time, action is a specific art.
But I mean him as a producer, rather than him starring in it. Maybe.
Oh, why doesn't he produce something?
Do you know why he...
I don't know. I've tried to contact him myself. I really don't know why.
Okay.
And for him to have an excellent action producer, director, and Michael Jai White on his set every day.
That's what I mean, right.
I don't know if they've had conversations or whatever. Perhaps something's cooking in the future. I don't know why he hasn't, because the action genre is the blockbuster genre.
Right.
There's no blockbuster comedy. There's no blockbuster drama.
No.
There's no blockbuster. What are those stories? With
I mean, maybe sci-fi. I mean, sci-fi action, but it has to have that element. Yeah.
Still action. Even action horror is still action. Zombies is still action.
Right.
If you're killing, you got to get away. You got to fight. It's action.
Yeah, of course.
Whether you be on space or
no, I agree.
on the Earth, it's still action.
I understand.
Star Wars is action.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I don't know why. I can't answer that.
No. It's funny though, because it's odd that the three kind of eras that you have, and this is, I'm sort of pigeonholing just for the needs of sort of explanation, but like you have the early 70s, and then you have the early 90s where you have Spike Lee and John Singleton and people like that making movies about a certain experience and a certain representation, and gangster films or drug films or crime films or whatever they be. Mm-hmm. And then, you skip forward maybe another decade, and then you start to have the Tyler Perry and the Oprah movies, which tend to be either sort of true stories like Selma or Precious or one of those ones, or like you say, the Christian-based family kind of comedy dramas. And it's interesting that there's never been kind of apart from, I guess, Wesley Snipes is really the great one, and of course, I suppose Denzel Washington does the odd thing, and Will Smith and things, but I mean, really, there hasn't been an explosion of those kind of action crime gangster detective movies that there were in the 70s. There hasn't really been that again since in such a concise way. There has been spread out.
Like I said, they only use one person per decade. That's the problem. Denzel, they stick with Denzel. Or they'll stick with Will.
Right.
Well, done 4 MIBs by now? He did, right? Yeah. And then, he's did the Independence Day, Hancock, so he's stuck, but guess what? He produces his own films too. Overbrook Entertainment is Will Smith's company.
Yeah.
And guess who he uses? His family. And guess what? He should.
Right.
The Karate Kid, the Karate Kid with his son. So hey, Denzel was more of a drama. He just really started the action like A Man Apart.
He's kind of doing a Neeson thing, doing it like slightly later in life. And, yeah.
But but still, it's the same guy.
Yeah. Did you like the Equalizer, the reboot that he did for that with Anton Fuqua? I thought it was really good.
It was good, but I liked the one that they produced with the Hughes brothers. Iasanto and Jeff Amata taught him for that film. Believe it or not, they trained him for that film.
Is it a recent one, or is it one of his?
It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Huh.
It's like sort of like in like the way it was like the
Oh,
world.
Book of Eli.
Book of Eli.
Book of Eli.
Yeah,
right.
Book of Eli.
Yeah, that flopped though. Sadly, it was not a.
Yeah, but his
not a-
techniques, man, were great. I'm looking for his action. His
Of course,
techniques were great. I liked the movie.
Yeah.
His techniques were excellent in that movie. And then now he's playing with little Marky Mark, Two Guns.
Yeah. I didn't see that. Was that any good?
It's all right. They're just good actors.
Yeah.
So we need new, fresh faces, fresh people. But you know what? That's why you create your own. That's why we have the Netflix. That's why we have the VOD. That's why, my son watches YouTube.
Yeah.
He doesn't watch TV.
No.
He watches YouTube. Everything he wants to watch, he watches on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he realizes there's stuff on television.
How old is he now?
10.
Oh, yeah.
His experience, okay, that's another thing. The set-top box smart experience that brings basically the Hollywood network and big budget people to your screen. It brings the independence on the same level as the networks in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Why? Because your YouTubes, your Vimeo, your Hulus, and so forth are on these set-top boxes. Roku,
Yeah.
Kindle Fire, Xbox,
Yeah.
Wii U, PS4. These are now content aggregating systems.
Right.
So my son watches all his stuff off of his Wii or his Wii U.
Right.
I cut my cable to basic cable because I can watch anything I want off my Roku.
Right.
I got Roku. I got Google TV. I have a smart Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
All your TVs now are what?
Smart TVs. You can link to the internet. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't have cable at all. I don't even have
you don't
cable.
need it.
No.
You don't need it. So
TV shows end up on either Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or somewhere where I can pay $1 to watch them, and it's cheaper than, you have, some people have cable all year round just so they can keep up with The Walking Dead or something, and you think to yourself, it'd be cheaper to buy the DVD box set every time it comes out than it is to have cable all the way around, because it's $150 a month to have cable. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's so expensive, and it's like $20 to have internet. It just doesn't even compute. And that's the other nice thing, is because that's a situation where everything is on the internet, we should be keeping everything as cheap as possible, and we should be keeping internet subscriptions as low as possible, it means that everyone gets the opportunity to watch it. It's not a case where you have to have $200 coming in every month to dedicate to what you're watching. But you can go to YouTube for relatively no money apart from your internet subscription.
Exactly.
and watch what you want. And see content from either all over the country or all over the world. I mean, through your showcase, through the Urban Action Showcase, and finding out that there are all these people who, if they have access to a rooftop, or they have access to a backyard, or they have access to a local park or whatever, they're going out there on a weekend and making these martial art. If it's not a movie, then it's a show reel, or it's a showcase, or it's a little comedy skit that happens to have fighting in it, or it's a Power Rangers spoof, or whatever it is. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff, and it's all on YouTube, it's all on Vimeo, it's all there for people to watch and get excited about.
And believe it or not, that's a lot what people are watching.
Hi, I'm just going to jump into the podcast here. Just say thanks ever so much for listening. As always, I hope you're really enjoying this fascinating conversation with Demetrius. If you want to come to the show, if you want to donate to the show, if you're interested in more information about the show, etc., 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 then head on over to urbanactionshowcase.com. It's all there, www.urbanactionshowcase.com, and find out all you need to know about the upcoming show, who's going to be there, what you can do, where to send your stuff, how to support it, etc., etc., etc. Thanks so much for listening to this. Again, If you're a fan of the After Movie Diner, if you like the conversations that we bring to you, please head over to our Patreon account. That's www.patreon.com/After Movie Diner. That's patreon.com/After Movie Diner, and sponsor the show. If you want to keep important conversations like this happening, if you're a film fan, if you enjoy the show, help us come to a city near you, help us to meet you and talk to you, help us to attend more events and bring you more and more information, knowledge, etc. That's www.patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Thanks so much, and now back to the show.
Because think about this. The majority of the films that Hollywood is greenlighting or financing are blockbuster films.
Right.
And going back to what we're talking about, the comic book creators at my event, these are independent comic book creators.
Yeah.
Why? Because most of your action content is coming from these comic books.
Yeah.
Your X-Men, right? Your Ant-Man, your Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Right? All these blockbuster films.
Yeah.
Your Batmans. Television. Now, television has stepped it up. Now, before if you were a film actor, you didn't want to do TV?
Right.
Oh, TV's the place now.
Yeah.
Arrow, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., with the actual actors from
the movies,
the cinema.
Yeah. Daredevil is phenomenal. Have you seen some of the martial arts in Daredevil?
Did you see what is it called? Marco Polo?
No, I haven't seen that.
You
yet.
didn't see the fight scenes in Marco Polo?
Oh, they're good?
Oh my. You can YouTube it.
Yeah.
I think he's called Thousand Eyes.
Okay.
He's the Wu-Dang monk.
Right.
Who is like the teacher for Genghis Kublai Khan's army.
Okay.
And he has to teach Marco Polo, but I tell you, his technique is flawless.
It's phenomenal, right?
Flawless.
Yeah.
Oh my. But exactly like you said, you have all of this content now that don't forget your Netflix though is a premium channel. You're paying a fee for Netflix.
Right.
So it's no different than the HBO.
Right.
So, but as HBO produces content, so does Netflix now. But they do a lot of action.
Right.
In fact, I think 90% of what they do is action.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, it's just changed. It's changed, and Hollywood's only doing mega blockbuster films with huge budgets. But think about how much it costs to go to the movies now.
Yeah.
$15 for a regular movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the reason why, because these big screen TVs are cheap now. HD is nothing because you got the 4K now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so you have that theater experience at home, and it doesn't cost you as much.
I can shoot in HD on this. This shoots on HD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is a phone. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. So,
But that's what excites me. Like, I've said a lot on the show time and time again, and again, I felt this spirit when I was at your showcase last year, to keep bringing it back to that, is that I know so many people who create great web content, be it web series, be it movies, be it whatever it is. I get independent movies sent to me all the time, whether it's horror, whether it's action, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I get web series people send to me all the time. And I get music and soundtracks that people are doing and scores people are writing and things like that. That while, like you say, TV has stepped up its game, Netflix is producing content, Hollywood is doing these big budget movies, you could really stay home and watch web series as your TV, independent movies as your movies.
Exactly.
Listen to independent music on Bandcamp or SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever it is, and you could really have a full independent life without ever having to give money to corporations, apart from like your internet subscription sadly still comes through Time Warner or whatever.
Right.
But beyond that, you wouldn't have to give Universal or Paramount or Sony or any of those people money ever again if you didn't want to. Like,
right.
I'm not advocating that necessarily, but I'm just saying there's so much good content out there that you could really get your fix of anything you're into. You just have to abandon that idea that it's not going to star Will Smith or Denzel Washington or whatever it is. It's going to star Demetrius Angelo.
Yeah,
or
someone
whatever
new.
it is.
But the thing is, the new guys are doing more than what these old guys are doing.
Right.
Why? Because they're hungry and they have something to prove.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like I said, back to the premise. The premise was I didn't see myself.
Right.
When you don't see yourself, you don't have a sense of belonging.
No.
And not being accepted in different festivals, because action is not accepted. You'll never get an Academy Award for action, right?
Right.
It's not part of the Academy.
No. Well, the big stuntman thing lately with Statham and some other people saying they want to see stunts recognized as Oscars because...
We've asked, but they still haven't approved it.
No, because all these people who literally put their life on the line for your entertainment get no recollection whatsoever.
No, but the irony is it's the blockbuster genre.
Right.
It's the genre that's making you all the money,
right?
But you don't get any credit for it. No.
Special effects have started to. CGI and some of the costuming and things like that have started to, but really beyond
that's
not
fine.
Much.
But the funny
Lord of the Rings and things I'm thinking of got a lot of awards.
Well, as it well should.
Of course.
As it well should. But I didn't see myself, so I wanted to create an environment where the multicultural achievements were celebrated, were honored, and would inspire and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's a specialized field, the action field, and you got to know what you're doing if you want to do it right.
Right.
A lot of people just get out there, just try to do something that looks that way.
Right.
Because we've seen plenty of movies coming up where the actor was not a martial artist, and we knew better.
Right.
And that's another thing. Remember, the original guys were martial artists.
Right.
Chuck Norris was a martial artist. Good guys wear black. The octagon. He was a martial artist. Bruce Lee was a martial artist. Jim Kelly was a martial artist. Fred Williamson was a martial artist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When we started to get away from that, that's when things started to fall down as far as, the validity of the content. Then Jackie Chan was showing everybody up. That's what happened in The Matrix.
Right.
They decided to bring Wu Ping and everybody over because they decided they wanted to get back to business and do their own fight scenes.
Right.
They paid the price. Because stuff like this, if you look at the behind the scenes, they've never done this stuff before. They had whiplash. Keanu Reeves' neck was a neck brace half the time.
Right.
Because, you kind of got to stay in your lane or prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And they trained for a year to do that little bit of stuff they did in The Matrix.
Yeah. It's like Luc Besson brought in Corey Yen for the transporter with Statham and things like that to do a lot of that. And Corey Yen's done a lot of more choreography since then.
And now, pre-production, they're training 8 months.
Yeah.
6 hours a day.
Yeah.
7 days a week, 6 days a week, to make it look authentic.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad to see that they're, realizing that, hey, if you want your stuff to look authentic, you got to put in the work.
But what it's cutting out is that environment you had in the 70s and 80s, where if you were a martial artist, you would get a film because you had the skills, and they were always like, well, we can teach them to say the lines, right?
Exactly.
And they know how to do the fights.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's flipped.
Yeah.
Someone like Matt Damon, for example, knows how to say the lines, and they're teaching him, like you say, 8 months to be able to play Bourne or whatever it is, because Greengrass wants to film it like this, so Damon has to do it close up and has to be able to do it. It has to be him doing it. So it's kind of flipped. So it means that the martial artists themselves, someone like a Seagal or a Van Damme or a Rothrock or any of those people, now wouldn't have a career in the same way. They would be behind the scenes. They wouldn't be starring.
Like Jeff Amata. You would be, because remember, Jeff Amata, you saw him in the cult classic that has its 30th anniversary next year. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah, it's a tremendous one.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing next year, right?
Right, yeah.
Of course. But I'm saying, so you got to make the transition.
Right.
Or independent. You do the independent thing.
Yeah.
Like you said.
But it's funny how they flipped it and how they've gone, well, we're going to take this theatrical actor and teach him to be a martial artist rather than let's teach the martial artist how to speak well.
Exactly. but when you're not in charge, that's what happens.
Right.
But that's another point. Ownership is important.
Yeah.
And that's what we teach. We teach you the business side of action as well as the action side of action.
Right.
So you can be a content owner.
Yeah.
You can be a network owner.
Yeah.
Through these platforms that we introduce you.
I think we're done, man. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll just have some more water. It'd be great. Thank you as well.
Yeah, so, I feel we're in a good place. We're definitely in an uphill battle. But the thing is, we're going to fight.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep fighting for what we believe in. And,
You would think that something like action or, well, you would think movies would be colorblind anyway. But beyond that, living in the reality of, unfortunately, you would think something like action, especially martial arts action, that's very specific and you have to have certain skills to be able to do it. You would think that, like we were saying, the skills would speak for themselves and what someone looked like wouldn't come into question. Sadly, it does, and that's what you're trying to change, right? That's the mindset you're trying to change.
In America.
Right.
We don't have that problem overseas.
Right.
We don't have that problem, and obviously you can see all the movies that they do overseas.
Right.
So it's the the old American issue that we've always had.
Sure, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
That we've always had. So, but like I said, that gives us opportunity to do something else, to do it for ourselves, and I appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I'm all for it because I love. Like, you only have to point to something that someone was talking about the Fast and Furious franchise. The more diverse that got,
that is
the more popular it got.
Single most successful multicultural franchise in history.
Yeah, completely.
Fast 7 grossed $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah.
No other film ever done that, ever. So, and think of who was in it from the get-go. You started with mostly, you had Vin Diesel, which is ethnically ambiguous, but really he's black and white.
Right.
But he's playing a Latino.
Right.
Michelle Rodriguez. Vin Diesel's sister, I don't forget her name. Paul Walker.
What's her name? I can picture it, but I can't think right now.
And then you jump to part 2 when you go. When do we go to Tokyo Drift?
Tokyo Drift is the third one, but part 2 brings in. He was a singer as well.
Oh, you're talking about Tyrese?
Yeah, he comes in the second one.
He comes in the second one?
Vin Diesel's not in the second one. Paul Walker and Tyrese are the lead. Tyrese Gibson is the two leads in the second one.
I need to go back and watch that again.
Tyrese comes in the second one.
I thought he just came in on 4.
No, Tyrese comes in the second one, then Han comes in I forget the actor's name who plays Han. But he's in Tokyo Drift, that's where he comes in.
Right.
But you've got the 2 Brazilian guys as well who are in...
Oh, you're talking about this. You're talking about but that's not until 5.
No, they're in 4 as well. The 2 guys, they only speak Portuguese, I presume, in the movie. They're the only 2 subtitled actors in the whole franchise, and they're not in 6 or 7. They're only in.
Don Omar was in 5.
Right, and by 5 you've also because for
the Rock in 5. You have Don Omar because they're in Brazil.
Right.
Right. Don Omar, which is a reggaeton singer.
Right.
Because I know, and then there's you have Ludacris.
But he's from the first one.
Ludacris? I don't remember.
He's at the race sequence where they first show up. He's not a main part, but he's one of the car owners or one of the mechanics or whatever in the first one. He's been throughout the series. I don't think he's in the second or the third one. Paul Walker's not in the third one, but Vin Diesel shows up at the end of the third one. And then the series that we're on now is 4, 5, 6, 7, which is the ongoing storyline.
The point is, you have all these different ethnicities of color.
Right. And nobody cares. It's just the story.
And it works.
It works perfectly. I mean, it works because it's... the thing I've never understood about the lack of diversity that you see in movies is that, I mean, maybe it's more prominent in London and New York and places where I've lived, but you walk around and that's the life you lead. That's what you see. It's not... I don't get on a bus and it's all people who look like me, and wouldn't that be a horrible fucking world if it was? It's
it's like that in the Midwest.
Right, sure. But
some places in the South.
Right.
So I guess maybe those are big markets. I don't know.
Yeah, you would think New York, LA, San Francisco, these would be the big markets.
That's what I would think.
London, Paris, Tokyo, you'd think Hong Kong. These would be the big markets. The markets where... And you look at all these action movies, something like The Expendables, the only reason that's still a franchise is because it's doing big overseas. It's not doing particularly well anymore in the US, but in the overseas, it's huge business.
Okay.
It's still a huge business. Like the third one, which got pirated and therefore did no business over here at all, they're only making a fourth one because it did so well in the Asian markets, it does so well in the European markets, because although it's not as diverse as Fast and Furious, there is a mix of people in there, and there are people who...
Well, it's nostalgia. These are
nostalgia,
all
right? Who have been in
the stars from the '80s that we grew up with. Chuck Norris,
right.
Schwarzenegger. You've got everybody, and then you got some of the new people.
Yeah.
You had the UFC guy.
You had Victor Ortiz in the latest one, and you had who was the boxing guy, and you had Ronda Rousey, and you had
Randy Couture.
Randy Couture is the MMA guy.
Rousey was in 3.
Rousey's in 3.
Yeah, that's right. She sure is.
She's also in part 7 of Fast and Furious as well.
Yes.
They swapped Gina Carano out, and it's Rousey and so.
Rousey is that's a whole nother story right there.
Yeah. She's big news. So let's get back to having this fantastic conversation. Let's get back to the showcase then. What do we want to leave the listeners with? Why should they come to the showcase? What do they need to do to support it? And what are your plans for the showcase in the future?
Well, first thing is, like I said, the action genre is the genre of heroes.
Right.
It's the genre where you have villains that would destroy your tomorrow and heroes that would save your today.
Right.
And
that's a great phrase.
It's the genre that inspires us to look inside yet beyond ourselves and believe.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, completely, yeah.
The action genre, whenever you watch an action movie, you come out thinking, I could do that.
Right.
Or I want to do that.
It would be cool.
It just make it's an adrenaline rush. It just picks you up.
Yeah.
And my showcase is an action showcase. Period.
Right.
Yes, we focus on the multicultural achievements, but it doesn't take away from the fact it's still an action showcase.
Right.
That being said, from the fan point of view, you get to meet your action icons.
Yes, you do.
You get to watch some of these movies that you love and hadn't seen on the big screen in a long time. You get to watch new films that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And you get to have a night of celebration with people that you perhaps looked up to or perhaps were a fan of throughout your life.
Right.
From a professional point of view, you're going to find out or meet someone that will help you enter this mysterious genre. If you're a martial artist, you are going to find out, how can I use my martial arts skills for this genre?
Yeah.
If you're not, you will find out, where can I take screen fighting? Where can I meet producers or directors that do this? If you're a comic book artist, you will find people who want to bring this to live action.
Yeah.
Because the next step from this 2D to make it 3D, take it off the page.
Yeah.
Because, you're going to reach more people that way.
Right. That's what I thought when I saw Howard Smith Studios.
Howard Smith Studios.
They do that incredible comic book that would be like a team-up between Pam Grier and Cynthia Rothrock. They're even drawn slightly that way, but you can imagine that if you went back to 1980 and made the movie, that's who you'd want to see kicking ass. And that's the equivalent today, of course. You could find the equivalent today, but for me, being a fan of particularly of those two ladies, that comic book. The comic book in question is called Bombshells. It's by the fantastic Powersmith Studios, and you can find them on Facebook over at www.facebook.com/pages/Powersmith-studios. So please do check them out because they are fantastic. The artists are Sean Atkinson and Carl, or C.K. Kent. So please check out Powersmith Studios on Facebook. Thanks.
So, and like I said, from the professional point of view, you would find out, okay, well, these are the headshots you would need to do. These are the action shots. These are the people. If you want to start with the stunt realm, this is who you would get with. These are independent filmmakers that you want to connect with.
Right.
So there's just so many aspects to the genre. From editors. Special effects, if you're into that. Like I said, on the business side, distribution, with Vimeo, crowdfunding or film finance as well. It's just, it's sort of like a one-stop shop for the genre. Like I said, this year, we're celebrating 20 and 30 years of Cult Classic Martial Arts Mania, or Martial Arts Cult Classic Mania, with closing out the Last Dragon 30th anniversary celebration, 20th anniversary celebration of Mortal Kombat, and the 30th anniversary celebration of American Ninja. Mm-hmm. We have the Film Festival, which features both features, shorts. We have something called a 2-minute warning, which is just action scenes.
Right.
Whereas if you're an action director or screen fighter or a fight guy and you want to show your screen fighting skills, any action scene 3 minutes or less, it's called the 2-minute warning. We'll give you 3 minutes, whether it be hand-to-hand, weapons, firearms, parkour chase, car chase, all of that's included.
Nice.
Web series, TV pilots, fan films, as I mentioned. There's a fan film contest. There's the awards, the International Action Film and Honoree Awards, where you get to see your favorite action icons receive, be honored.
Right.
And then don't forget we have the after party. I'm not a partying kind of guy, but we provide it for you.
Right. Well, the pre-party was pretty spectacular last year. I mean,
it's HBO.
I know that's for press only, right? That was
it's for
VIPs, right?
VIPs, which is the filmmakers,
right?
The guests, the sponsors, and.
I felt incredibly lucky to be there.
Oh, well, you'll be there again.
It was incredible.
So, yeah, that's our HBO Cinemax red carpet welcome reception.
Yeah.
At HBO. But we just want to provide an amazing experience for the action fans. That's just about action.
Right.
Of course we have Comic Cons and this, that, and another, but Comic Cons is about all pop culture. Right. Where this is specifically about action and action films, and I'm talking, when I say action, obviously I'm talking about adventure, fantasy, sci-fi, supernatural, right, action, horror, all that's included.
Yeah. Anything where someone either runs away, punches someone, fires a gun, anything like that.
Anytime someone needs to save the day.
Right.
That's action.
Yeah.
So, the future is just, we want to grow. We want to be able to be in the Javits Center one day. Right. We want to make sure that we can have a eclectic array of talent and content and just make it an amazing experience where people, both fans and professionals alike, come away satisfied and wanting more. And so far in doing because have you done 2 shows so far? We've done 2.5. 2.5. Okay. The reason why is because last year we did so well our first year. Last year Cinemax gave us 2. Right. So they gave us a night in something called Urban World, which is a traditional film, multicultural film festival, right, which allowed us to have an action night to sort of introduce action to a demographic that normally watches dramas or romantic comedies or,
Right.
you know, something of that sort. And like I said, we brought in Michael Jai White because he was a perfect crossover.
Right.
Like I said, they knew him from Why Didn't I Get Married and For Better or Worse.
Right.
But when they saw him in Falcon Rising, because we debuted his film with Layla Ali called Falcon Rising at that time,
Nice.
they got to see him in a different light for those who didn't know him that way.
Right.
And, you know, we got to introduce action to these people who normally, you know, didn't see it. So we did have a little mini event at the Urban World. So as far as the Urban Action Showcase standing alone, this is our third year.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's November 6th and 7th. November 7th mainly at AMC Theaters, Empire 25, 42nd Street, 8th Avenue, Times Square at the crossroads of the world. Mm-hmm. And, you know, www.urbanactionshowcase.com. And you just click register and you just get your basic expo ticket. Like I said, it includes all the films.
Yeah.
And it includes the expo where you can, you know, engage with the action stars and the comic book creators and the filmmakers and so forth. The award show is separate and so is the after party, but nothing's more than $20.
Right.
You know, the expo, I mean, the showcase itself is $30. But the awards, I think, is $20. But I think you can get the showcase and awards for $40.
Right.
You know, it's not.
And even the I can talk to like the stars who are there. They don't charge particularly that much for autographs.
Exactly.
I mean, Don Wilson spoke to someone, I think, for about 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave him $10. He got 3 photographs with him, signed a bunch of stuff. You know, they're not charging a lot. Like a lot of these conventions you go to, you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. That's not the case with this, and it's not what it's about.
It's not what it's about. That's just it.
Right.
This is not what it's about. So, it's just, you know, a family. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you're in your action family. You know, meeting your cousins.
Right.
Basically.
Of course.
And hooking up and creating things. You'll see a lot of great things have come out of these events. Independent filmmakers and action actors have gotten together, created content, and it'll debut this year.
And what was the feedback like after? Did you hear back from a lot of the people who have booths and tables at the showcase? Do they write you and keep in contact?
Yeah. They definitely love it, and you know they'll be back again this year. So you know it's I think it's something that an individual would walk away and say, hey, you know what, I really enjoyed myself. I can't wait for next year.
Yeah.
You know? And the more support we have, the better it'll always be. Because
Right.
like I said, it's not about money. I'm not making any money.
Right.
Everything I get, I put into it because it's about the experience and changing the mentality of eventually of content that you see from the networks or from
Right.
the Hollywood film, you know, industry. Because if you think about it, do you watch Arrow?
I don't watch it, no, but I'm aware.
Okay.
I need to watch it. I'm back
John
on...
Diggle is not in the Green Arrows comic series.
Right.
But because of his presence in that show and how he's evolved and developed, now he's written in that series
Right.
as far as the comic book.
Oh, they've written a character from the TV show into the comic book?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Not only that, if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the
I saw the
agent,
first series.
Agent May has just evolved to basically the co-star.
Right.
You know, she's Asian female.
Right.
We haven't had an Asian female since Lucy Liu. Whenever you're going against the mainstream, you're going uphill. So, you know, the point is you keep taking steps. And that's my mentality. We're always going to keep taking a step forward.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
So even if we have to
You're seeing the
rest.
movement grow on the internet all the time. Feminism is huge, and obviously, like we've seen some real tragedies in the last 18 months in the African American community, and that is bringing more and more awareness. Like, you know, it seems like people are on board. It's just the powers that be are kind of catching up to it. I don't know what it is.
Well, I tell you, like I said, people will respect those who invest in themselves. I think people of color need to realize that you must invest in yourself if you expect anyone else to invest in you.
Right.
So, like I said, if we had the fan base that was buying tickets, I wouldn't have to worry about sponsors.
Right.
Sponsors would come knocking on my door.
Right.
They're like, oh, you got these people coming? Oh, we want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But until that happens, it's always going to be that dragging the thing up the hill kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know what? Those who know usually tell others.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not looking for a microwave experience. I'm in it for the long run.
Yeah.
You know, by the grace
It's a great
of God.
way to do it, to
you
mix
know.
that pop culture element with the message and the independent experience that someone can have to, like you say, market themselves and grow their creative endeavors. To marry all that together, I think it's phenomenal. I think it's great. I think you've got so many avenues and potential for it to grow. That's really where it's exciting.
And it's so funny. I even tried out for Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And you know, their favorite word is, well, how can you scale it?
Right.
Can you bring it to scale? You know, and it's very simple. You know, it's not hard to do. It is a organism which will grow if you feed it.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Well, look at the. I mean, I know the producer, Jason Roth, who was trying to help Fred the Hammer get Old School Gangsters off the ground, the original Gangsters sequel.
Yeah.
And we talked to Fred through that, and we talked to Jason about that, and we're looking at that. Look at the cast he's got lined up for that. I mean, it's insane, and he can't find funding anywhere. And it's crazy. It's got everybody in it. Jim Brown's coming back, Andrea's coming back, and they're adding Antonio Fargas, and a whole bunch of people are going to be in that movie. Gloria Hendry is going to be in the film if they get it made. And, you know, that you can't finance something like that with those guys in it. It's just, you know, you want to grab someone by the lapels and go, are you kidding me? This could be like the Expendables of those guys, you know what I mean? This could be that big if they promoted
remember,
it that
the
way.
original Gangsters is where Stallone got his expendable idea from.
Right?
He called Fred up and asked him about when he did that. He's like, well, you know, how did that go? You know, that. And he actually called, they had a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when he came out with the original, that's when he came out with the Expendables.
Yeah.
But,
have you looked into, I was going to say, what are the old school guys are you getting back? Are you getting Richard Roundtree or Jim
I would
Brown or
love to.
Like
It's just a matter of finances. Everything is a matter of finances.
I know Roundtree's done a couple of events.
He would come, he said. You know, it's just, you know, a matter of fact. He would have came last year. He was scheduled to come. He would have come last year. But at this point, I have to work with what I got.
Of course. No. I mean,
But I would love to have Richard Roundtree. I would love to have, obviously, Pam Grier come through. And I always love to have Fred the Hammer because he supported me from day one.
well, you have a very similar message. And it's funny that he was trying to do it so many years ago, and that you still felt by the 80s or the early 90s that there wasn't someone who represented you on screen doing what you could do in terms of martial arts.
Well, it was more of me in my age group.
Right.
Because remember, I saw all those 70s films. That was not a problem.
Anyway, I wish you all the very best. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there next year. I'm going to be every year you do it, and we're going to report on it, and we're going to encourage people to go see it and come visit and be a part of it and buy tickets and come along and meet people. And we're going to reach out through Lee and other people I know in the action community to try and get them to all come along as well. But it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. It really has, sir. It's been a real pleasure.
And I just appreciate this platform. And I thank you for it and giving us the opportunity to be heard. And if we had more platforms like this, I don't think we would have much trouble doing what we needed to do. But
that's the best thing about podcasts is you start to spread out and you make connections and contacts. And I have friends all over the country now thanks to doing shows like this. And hopefully that'll only grow and grow and grow, you know. So.
Exactly.
But it's a real pleasure. It has been a real pleasure, and it's wonderful to be able to have an open discourse about what's going on and where movies are going, and action movies and diverse movies and stuff like that. So thanks ever so much, sir. It's been a real pleasure.
I appreciate everything.
And we'll see you in November. So again, you want to support the Urban Action Showcase, go over to www.urbanactionshowcase.com and check it out. Buy some tickets, support them however you can. That would be fantastic. This convention needs to grow and grow because it's not only important, but it kicks ass. All right, so to play us out tonight, it's me again with a song from my latest album, Bad Time Banjolady. You can find this over at miscplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com. That's MISC plumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com. Support the show by picking up a copy. Thanks so much and have a good week.
Would you